So I'm gonna try to give you guys this update while I eat my breakfast real quick. Kill two birds with one stone because we got to get going soon. But I saw this article, and it's about the increase of robot orders. Thank you. It's about the increase of robot orders, and they're up 40% in first quarter as desperate employers seek relief from labor shortages. I got a previous video, or a few videos, on how robots are taking over. Actually, technically, the U-Scan self-checkout is a form of robot. And if you saw my video the other day about Target, when the long lines at Target, and I know people were saying it's the beginning of a holiday weekend. I don't think that's an excuse for the long lines and lack of cashiers at Target, because it's not like they didn't know the holiday weekend was coming, yet they chose not to have employees manning cash registers. But at the end of the day, Target, restaurants, businesses in general are looking for ways to replace employees with robots. But this is nothing new. But what I want to make sure you guys understand is that if you're in a position to be replaced by a robot, you may want to think about that and prepare yourself for your job to become obsolete, and come up with a solution to that problem. It's kind of like it's like you'll have a solution to a problem that doesn't exist yet. But much like my theory on electric cars, once we get to a point where you have to have an electric car, there's pretty much really no way around it. The problem is then going to exist or be created that you can't get one. You can't even get a regular car now or truck due to the supply chain constraints, labor shortages, and most importantly, the semiconductor chip shortages. The biggest problem with that, there's a lot of problems, but I think one of the biggest problems with that is business. And businesses exist to make money. And the more they make, the better. We've already seen it in the stores, in grocery stores. We see it with diesel fuel. The less of something there is, the higher the price can be, and the more people will continue to buy it. And with these robot orders increasing, already first quarter up 40%, not only are they trying to eliminate you, the human component, and your ability to work and make money, they're also eating up semiconductor chips. So, sorry guys, it's a sustainable, healthy breakfast of reasonably clean carbohydrates in the bagel and peanut butter, good fats. But it can get a little messy to eat. But at the same time, when I'm done with this, I'm not going to be hungry for a while. It sticks with you. But if the companies that produce the semiconductor chips are saying, look, the robotic industry is booming, should we take the chips that we have, the few that we have available, and sell them to the companies who want to use them to build cars? Or should we take them and sell them to the companies that want to build robots that are paying more for them? We can't do anything about that. But what we can do is prepare. Prepare for everything that costs more. A whole lot more. A lot more. Like, inflation that we've seen so far is nothing. Because you got to think, inflation is an increase of the price somewhat in relation to the decrease in the value of the dollar. However, if a new piece of tech comes out, never before seen, can it have inflation from day one? It's kind of like an IPO, like the first offering of a price. It can't be inflation because there was no price before it historically to compare it to have a percentage increase over historic previous prices. And as this new tech comes out in the robotics industry, they're going to set the price high because they can. And it's not going to be considered inflation, but it will drive up the cost of everything else that comes out of the production of these robots. And there's nothing we can do about it. There's nothing the Fed can do about it, nothing Jerome Powell can do about it, nothing Biden can do about it to reduce and slow inflation, because this is going to be brand new. They're going to set a precedent early on with a high price. So, when speaking of tech, I don't know if you guys have seen the new Ford F-150 Lightning. They're setting a precedent for how much they're going to charge for that truck, by the way. You might want to go check it out. It's a little disturbing. But what we can do is prepare ourselves to reap the benefits of these new precedents, these new expensive purchases, and ultimately the success of the businesses behind these products and these expensive prices and their profits. So, looking to invest in robotics, looking to invest in tech, looking to invest in electric car companies, electric vehicle technology, renewable energy technology. Most importantly, the electric vehicle market is going to be huge. Automotive industry has always been huge, but most importantly, this electric vehicle market is going to have some form of sustainability if it's going to be considered renewable. So, investing in tech that repurposes and refurbishes and restores and recycles batteries and other components from Toyota Prius, Tesla, Model S, X, Y, the Cybertruck that ever comes out, the semi-truck that ever comes out. I think they mentioned a Tesla van soon. Nissan has a Leaf, Chevy Bolt. Even the RV that I drive has a, the Porsche Taycan, the new Porsche Macan, the new Porsche Cayman will be EV, and eventually a 911 will be electric, or at least a hybrid powered, dual power. But the RVs are moving, like we have a Class B van, but RVs in general are moving towards lithium power, getting away from the diesel generators and moving towards lithium powered, battery powered, solar power inverters. But eventually there's a life cycle of these devices that store energy, but they don't need to be thrown away. And the minerals required, lithium, cobalt, magnesium, all these minerals required to create these batteries can be recycled. But the companies that do it, they're going to position themselves to be extremely profitable. And we can position ourselves to be extremely profitable with them, to be able to afford the expensive tech, to be able to afford the expensive food, to be able to afford the expensive gas and diesel, afford the expensive electric vehicles. Like I said, check out the Ford F-150 Lightning and what the MSRP is according to Ford, and what dealers are already charging for the truck that hasn't even been released yet. This is going to be a similar situation to the Corvette, C8 Corvette, and a lot of other vehicles that were introduced and available in 2020, 2021, and now. Ford Bronco. The limited supply with increased demand and want by the market dictates the price going up. Additionally, we're seeing shortages in helium. You may be like, big deal. What does it matter? Well, the reason why it matters is the shortages are affecting us all over. Like this Dell laptop, for instance, XPS 15. This is the new Dell XPS 15 9520 with the Intel i9 processor. And before anybody says anything in the comments, yeah, sure. Sorry, getting crumbs on my keyboard. The new Apple M1 chip is a beast, I get it. But I'm a PC fan. I'm not going to Apple. I'm not going to Mac OS X. I was surprised I was even able to get this. But certain specifications on their website were months out as far as getting them. And it has to do with the shortage of the materials, of the semiconductor chips, of the graphics cards. This one has a NVIDIA GeForce 3050 Ti graphics card. Those are hard to come by. 4K OLED screen. They've taken their resources that they have and they've tried to maximize the profit based on availability and put them in specific machines to sell those. But the other ones, if you want to increase RAM, if you want to increase hard drive size, if you want anything out of the norm, there's a shortage of that availability and an extended lead time. Well, we're seeing a shortage of helium. Dollar Tree is posting about this shortage, and it could potentially be a huge problem. Not just for the reasons that they're stating, like Nebraska not being able to set off red balloons at a football game. Not the end of the world. Not being able to go to Dollar Tree and get balloons for your kid's birthday party, now $1.25. But more importantly, not being able to get MRI imaging because it requires the use of helium. And there's a lot of things out there, a lot of like just normal stuff we take for granted day to day, that minor interruptions in the supply chain can cause catastrophic results across the board that you never ever really think about. And the helium shortage also affects the weather technology and the ability to send balloons up, which, that could be a huge problem for us to not have the information readily available to us, accurate information, especially as it relates to weather and the climate and farmers and their ability to harvest and our safety when it comes to tracking storms, hurricanes, tornadoes, tsunamis, all sorts of stuff. All things that will further have an effect on the supply chain, which could theoretically drive us to crisis and chaos and panic as we proceed closer and closer to total economic collapse and possible famine. For multiple reasons: the money, the diesel fuel shortages, the transportation costs, the farming industry. The farming industry, by the way, someone posted in the Facebook group some information from the USDA. I appreciate you for I don't have it pulled up right now, but the person who shared it, I appreciate you for sharing that with the group. Very helpful. They received an email from a family member who works for USDA explaining the possible challenges that we are soon to face as it relates to food and the need to increase U.S. food production since we're cut off basically from Russia and Ukraine, just obviously from the war and sanctions and shipping and supply chain issues, but bringing food production back more to the U.S. Some things we can't really produce in the U.S. because of climate. We don't have the climate, the soil, the temperatures, the environment to produce certain things. But besides that, we do need to have a strong focus on U.S. food production. And we have a huge obstacle, or multiple huge obstacles besides those I've already mentioned. But there's something called crop insurance. And crop insurance is what farmers use to sustain their own lifestyles, basically. Think about it like car insurance. You put your money into a vehicle, but you're not in full control of that vehicle through car accidents, vandalism, acts of God, trees falling on them, floods, theft, who knows. But you pay every month, every year maybe. Pay every year, you get a discount. Side note, I switched to Geico. This is not a sponsored video. But we're relocating to Florida, and my insurance broker can't write policies in Florida. So I just jumped online to check and see. So my insurance provider, or my broker in Atlanta, he had us set up with AAA for auto. And he's got us with Progressive for our RV. And I'm gonna call Progressive and say, hey, let me take over the manage of this policy for Florida. But with AAA, he wasn't sure if I could do that. So I jumped on Geico just to see. And they say you can save 15% or more by switching to Geico. When it was all said and done, I saved 21%. I could have saved more if I made some adjustments and changes to the coverage amounts and things like that, but I saved 21% by switching to Geico at a time where most people are seeing increases in their insurance. And I also received additional discounts for paying the premium in full for 6 months instead of month to month. Just sharing that with you guys, in case you guys are looking for ways to save money. But the insurance covers and protects the investment. Hang on one second. Sorry about that. So the insurance covers and protects the investment. And farmers have this. It's called crop insurance. And they use it at times when they don't foresee having the ability to have a good harvest or two, for the year. And the money they pay into the premiums would kind of cover past harvests, so they can determine, the insurance companies can determine the value. Well, with what we've got going on right now, everything we've got going on right now that is hurting the U.S. farmer, everything from diesel costs, diesel availability, the input costs, repair parts, repair availability, new equipment costs or availability, and the weather, the climate, fertilizer costs or availability, labor shortage. You gotta think to yourself, as a farmer, why risk? Why risk more than you have to especially when you have this insurance policy in place that can cover your costs for the year, and then you can look into picking back up next year if you still stay in the farming industry. Maybe you don't. Maybe you see it like every other industry and it's time to get out and evolve. And if that's the case, then we're going to see a decline in U.S. produced food ultimately next year. We won't see it today, we won't see it tomorrow. There's a cycle. That could be bad. That could be really bad. You know, farming is going to be one of those industries where you're going to see more people getting out, very few people getting in. Like trucking, transportation, and real estate. I hope you guys are paying attention, because we got to secure our food. We got to secure our safety. We got to secure our finances. We got a tough road ahead, real tough. Right now it may not seem that bad, but it's coming. All I can say is I hope that I'm wrong. I hope that I'm wrong, but I also hope that you guys are doing all you can to prepare in case I'm right. I have not seen diesel shortages yet, which is a huge concern. I've heard about it. There's mention of it. I don't know if this was a scare tactic for the ability for companies to drive up prices on the fuel, drive up prices on anything in the store that's related to the fuel, or if this was some form of reverse psychology to keep people more indoors and at home than out and about this summer, to limit social interaction and increase social distancing, etc., etc. You see where I'm going? Because if they sit there and tell you don't do this because of that, it kind of makes you want to do it instead. But if they say, if you're going to do this, it's going to cost you more to do it, or you may be unable to do it because there's no fuel to travel, etc., whatever, then you may make the decision not to, not because they told you not to, because you decided it was best not to. No, reverse psychology. But I have not seen it. And yes, the price of fuels have gone up, but so far in the areas that I've seen in Georgia, Alabama, and Florida, it's not, I mean, it's not good, but it ain't that bad in comparison to the prices that I've seen posted in the Facebook group. Again, thanks everybody in the group for sharing your area and your updates and information. I think it's very helpful. But like California, I actually watched Nikki Delventhal. She lives in a Toyota Prius, and she's got a YouTube channel. And her Prius broke down. She put it in the shop, and she was testing out other vehicles for consideration to purchase to replace the Prius. And she borrowed or rented a Ram 2500 diesel 4x4 with a stealth pop-up camper on the back. And the first thing she did, she's in California, she went to fill it up, and she said it was 8 times more expensive to fill that thing up than her Prius. It was 8 times more expensive to fill it up. But that doesn't even account for how inefficient it is and how more often she'll have to fill it up. But that's not even the worst part. The worst part was at the time of recording the video, it was like $6.59 a gallon for diesel wherever she was. And I've seen pictures of $7. So the realistic possibility and likelihood of us seeing gas and or diesel prices at $10 a gallon in 2022, I think is very likely. And California is going to get hit with it first. But if you look at it from the reverse psychology position, I can tell you to invest in electric. I can mandate renewable energy. And you can push back all you want. Or I can do everything in my power. They, U.S. government, those in power, just make it too expensive for you to do the things I don't want you to do. So you decide you're going to go do something different. And at the end of the day, they get what they want. I think they're getting a little bit smart on how they play this game. Possible new outbreaks from this virus that we shouldn't be concerned with, the monkey virus, monkeypox. We shouldn't be concerned with it, yet it's becoming more and more popular in the news. What do they start off with? They start off with a 21-day quarantine. Well, guess who doesn't want to get that? Anybody. "21-day quarantine? For most U.S. citizens, most Americans, middle class, the working poor, who are already struggling before the pandemic, struggling worse now, you get this, and you find yourself in a 21-day quarantine, you might as well just go ahead and file for bankruptcy. It's a wrap. You're not going to work. You're not going to make any money. The government ain't going to help you out. It's going to be awful. Meanwhile, these businesses and these corporations are finding ways to increase profits, increase production, limit overhead, reduce the human element, and just make money hand over fist through robots and technology that, guess what? Robots and technology will never ever need to be quarantined. Think about that.